Hello, this is Dr. Benfinio, and in this video I'll be showing you how to use the DS212 mini oscilloscope. Now before turning it on, let's start with a tour of the basic features of the hardware on your oscilloscope. This oscilloscope comes with a built-in function generator labeled out, two measurement channels labeled channel A and channel B. On the top you have a play-pause button, the on-off button. Then over here on the right you have two clickable scroll wheels that you will use to navigate the menus and a micro USB port that you use to charge the internal battery and to download data from your oscilloscope to a computer. Your oscilloscope also comes with two probes that require some assembly. So I have one assembled here. This one has a hook and an alligator clip along with the other end that you will plug into one of the ports on the oscilloscope. Again, this does not come assembled, so you can see I can pop it apart here. You will need to assemble these parts before you can use it. And you have a second probe that comes with two leads with female jumper pins on the end. Now it does come with additional hooks that you can fit these pins into, and that gives you a very tiny little hook that you can grab onto things, especially when working with circuits on a breadboard. I prefer to just pop a jumper wire into that pin, and then that will allow you to easily connect this probe to a breadboard instead of using this hook. So for our purposes for this tutorial, we are going to take the probe with those jumper wires and plug that into the function generator, so the port labeled out. And then we're going to take our other probe with the hook and the alligator clip and plug that into channel A. So we're going to turn the oscilloscope on by sliding this on-off switch over. It will take a second to boot up, and then you should see two flat lines, a blue one and a yellow one, because you have not connected the probes and you are not measuring anything yet. Note that when you do just have a probe dangling like this and it is not connected, it can be susceptible to noise. So as I'm bumping the probe here, I will see that blue line fluctuate a little bit. Don't worry about that too much yet. There's also a lot of information on the screen. Don't let that overwhelm you. We're going to go through these features one at a time. First, let's talk about the menu and basic navigation. So you're going to do this using the scroll wheels on the right and on the top. So the scroll wheel on the right, you scroll this to move up and down and select different menu items. You press it in to open a sub-menu for that item. And then again, you scroll up and down to move to the different menu items. You can press it again to exit that sub-menu, or you can wait a few seconds and it will time out automatically and leave the sub-menu. The top scroll wheel you can press in to cycle through 3 pages of options. So you see I have page 1, page 2, and page 3. Then it'll wrap around back to page 1. You can also use this scroll wheel to change the options in the submenu. For example, here I've selected channel B, and I'm going to use the top scroll wheel to change the y-axis voltage scale for channel B. We'll talk more about what that means later. I can also long press this top scroll wheel to hide the menu. So if you want to see more of what's going on the screen, you hold the top button in for a second, hold it in again to bring the menu back. So if you lose your menu, don't panic. You probably just held that button down for a little too long. Again, hold it down and then hold it in again to bring the menu on and off. Now, if at any point you're messing around in the menus and you change settings and you're not sure what you changed, you can always go back to the factory defaults by pressing the top button to go to page 3. Press the right button to select calibration. Scroll down to restore data. Press the top button to select that. Press the top button again to confirm. And then it will restore back to the factory settings. So again, you don't have to worry about playing around in the settings and messing things up. You can always revert. So next, let's set up the built-in function generator to generate a sine wave and then measure it with channel A. So I'm going to press the top button to scroll over to page 3 and select wave out options. And here I'm going to adjust the options to generate a 1 kilohertz sine wave. So I'm going to change type to sine. I'm going to go down to frequency, and I'm going to drop that frequency to 1 kilohertz. Press M to select again. I'm going to go back to page 1, and now I need to connect my probes so I can actually measure the signal. So here I have the tips of my probes. I'm going to need to go positive to positive and negative to negative. So the hook on this probe is going to go to the red wire on this probe, and then the alligator clip is going to go to the black wire here, so I'm connecting my grounds. Now when I go back to my oscilloscope, we'll see I have something displaying for the blue line, but it's not really the scale I want. So next we're going to talk about how we can use the menu options to control the X and Y axis scales on the screen. Before we do that, we're going to disable channel B because we are only using one measurement channel right now. So just to remove a little clutter, I'm going to go down to channel B, select that, go down to enable and turn that off. That will remove the yellow line. And now I want to change the scale on the screen so I can actually see my sine wave. And there are two scales I can change there. There's the y-axis scale, or the volts per division for channel A. You can actually change that without even opening the sub menu. You can just go to channel A here and scroll to change the y-axis scale. And I can go down to time base to change the x-axis scale. Again, you don't actually need to open the sub menu there. You can just go right to it and then use the top scroll wheel to change. And you can see as I'm changing that, I'm changing the volts per division displayed on the screen. Now I can get a more complete picture of my sine wave. You'll also notice that that information is displayed up here at the top. So I have 0.5 volts per division for the y-axis for channel A, and then I have 0.2 milliseconds per division on the x-axis for the time. So even if I scroll to a different menu page, that information is still displayed in these boxes at the top. And again, this is telling me that channel 2 is hidden. Okay, now that we've set up and acquired a basic signal, let's talk about a few of the features here in a little more detail. Next, we're going to talk about triggering. So triggering is what causes the oscilloscope to draw a trace on the screen. Some event needs to tell the oscilloscope to do this. And if you're lucky, you set up your signal and the defaults will just work and this will happen automatically, but you might run into a scenario where you're not seeing anything on the screen or you don't think the screen is updating properly, and that means the oscilloscope is not triggering properly. So over here on the left, you will see a little arrow with a T in it and a dashed line that goes across the screen. So the oscilloscope is going to trigger, meaning it's going to draw the trace on the screen when the voltage reaches this level. If we go into the trigger menu, we will see there are a few different modes. We're not going to go into detail on what all of these mean in this video. In general, we're going to want normal mode. You can select rising or falling edge, meaning when the voltage is going up or when the voltage is going down. So you see if I change this to falling edge, then my graph trace changes because it starts when the voltage is going down instead of going up. You can select channel A or channel B as the source. We're going to leave this as channel A since that's the only one we're using now. And importantly, you can change the threshold. So I can move that T up and down. You can see that changes exactly where the trace is going to start. And I want to be careful because if I go outside that range, if I'm outside the amplitude of my voltage, then my graph isn't going to update properly. So you want to make sure that T is inside the expected range of the voltage you expect to measure. I think this is a good time for a little side note. As you may be getting annoyed by that beeping just like I am, you can change that by going to the options on page 3, going to your system settings, and I'm going to dial that volume all the way down to 0 so you don't have to listen to the beeping over my voice. You can do that as well if the beeping is starting to drive you nuts. So now that we have our signal set up, we make sure we're triggering properly. We're probably going to want to measure something about this signal, like the frequency or the amplitude. So you can access many automatic measurements on page 2 of the menu. So you can see there are a bunch of default options selected. The color here will tell you whether it's for channel A or channel B, so blue for channel A, yellow for channel B. And the first two here will always display at the bottom. So you can see I have the frequency for channel A displayed right now, duty cycle for channel B, but I don't really want that because I'm not measuring anything on channel B. So say I'm going to go to that menu option, press to select, I'm going to change the source to channel A, and then we have a bunch of different types we can cycle through. There are a lot of options here: frequency, duty cycle, RMS voltage, average voltage, peak-to-peak voltage, max voltage, minimum voltage. So I'm going to select peak-to-peak voltage, and now we see I have on my bottom my 1 kilohertz square wave with a peak-to-peak voltage of about 2 volts. And you can get up to 5 of these to display on this menu at any given time, but only 2 of them will display here on the bottom. Now, automatic measurements are great, but we don't always trust them. Sometimes you might want to do a sanity check, or you might have a signal that is not something nice and clean like a perfect sine wave or a square wave, and you might need to do these measurements manually. We do that using the cursors, which you can access from page 1. So we go down to the cursor menu here, and this is going to bring up a big submenu with T cursors and V cursors. So the T cursors are for time, and you see if I use my top scroll wheel to move these. If you look carefully, you'll see there's a vertical dotted line on the screen that moves when I scroll that. So it's a little hard to see. Sometimes it's easy to get mixed up with one of the grid lines, but I can scroll that line left and right, and I can also scroll another one that's over here, left and right. And you'll see when I'm doing that, this delta T value in the bottom right corner of the screen is changing. So that is a way to manually measure the time difference between 2 points. For example, if I wanted to measure the period of this sine wave manually, I could put one of those cursors at one peak and the next cursor at the next peak, and then that's going to give me a manual measurement for the period of that sine wave that I would get from here. And as I'm expecting, that should be exactly 1 millisecond. You can do the same thing for voltage. So I go down to these V cursors and I can move this horizontal line up and down. So for example, I'm going to move that one to the peak of this sine wave. I'm going to move the next one down to the bottom of the sine wave. And this value is going to display in the delta V down here in the bottom left corner. And in this case, that's giving me a value of 2 volts, so I know it's matching my automatic measurement. But again, in general, it's a good idea to use these cursors for a manual measurement because sometimes the automatic measurements might not pick up things properly, especially for something that isn't a perfect signal like this. So we've gone through most of the options on page 1 in the menu here. There are a couple more I'll mention briefly. First, if you go down to X window, you can open this and you can actually scroll horizontally. So the oscilloscope trace is much longer than what you can see on a single screen. So if for some reason you have a much longer trace and you want to zoom in and scroll around, you can do that there. There is also channel C, which you see is not a physical input channel on the scope. There is no channel C button, so this is a math channel that can do some basic functions using the other 2 channels. For example, if we were using channel B as an input, we could add A and B, or you can take a single channel and negate it. So for example, I'm going to switch that to negative channel A and enable it. And there you see I now have a purple trace that's the inverse of channel A. Now when displaying 2 things on the screen like this, you might want to adjust your y-axis scale or the vertical position of the trace. So you can do that by going into the menu for that channel and moving this post value up and down. So that's going to just physically move the 0 level up and down in the graph. That's indicated by the little A over here on the left for channel A, or the C for channel C. So say again, I want to get both of these where I can see them. I'm going to move channel C up a little bit, and then maybe I want to shrink the y-axis scale, so I'm going to change this from half a volt up to 1 volt, and now I can see both signals more clearly on the screen. Be a little careful when you do that double check your triggering. You might need to move the threshold around in case you've accidentally moved one of these outside the range of that trigger threshold. Finally, there is one important setting I forgot to mention earlier, and that is the coupling. So if you go into the settings for channel A, you will see that it defaults to AC coupling, which means the scope is going to subtract out any non-zero mean and center your signal on 0. So I have my measurements set here for peak-to-peak voltage, which is about 2 volts, and the average voltage, which is 0, but you'll see that if I switch over to DC coupling, my peak-to-peak voltage does not change, so I still have an amplitude of 2 volts, but my average voltage has changed to about 1 volt. So this signal is now going from 0 to 2 volts instead of minus 1 volt to plus 1 volt. So again, you'll need to change that setting depending on what exactly you're doing and what you intend to measure, but make sure you do remember that it defaults to AC. Finally, in addition to viewing this information on your oscilloscope screen, you can also export it to a computer. So if you go over to page 3 and select File Manage, you'll see there are a bunch of different file types that will either save an image file of the information currently displayed on the screen or just record the actual data as time and voltage points to different file types. So you can select those, scroll left and right to change the file name, and then press the top button to save the file. You will see a little confirm file read-write message in the lower right to confirm that that file has been saved to internal memory on the scope. You can then go connect to a computer with a USB cable, and it works just like a flash drive, and you can download the files. So there you go. That was not an exhaustive tutorial of every single option. You will probably notice there were a few things on the menu I did not cover. There is more information available in the Oscilloscope's user manual. And again, don't worry and try not to be overwhelmed. There are a lot of different options and it can be intimidating at first trying to remember what all the different settings do, but you'll get used to this as you gain more experience using the oscilloscope on real circuits.